Wie geht es Ihnen?
Guten Tag.
Danke. Ik ben Veldweiler Ernst Ooms, 5th Motorized Battalion, Großdeutschland. Basically, for those who haven't spoken German, we basically said is, how's it going? Good morning. I'm Feldwebel Ernst Ooms of the 5th Motorized Division of the Großdeutschland Division. What we are portraying here today is an MG-34 machine gun team. First of all, let me give you a little history about our particular unit. The Großdeutschland Division was considered one of the elite divisions in the German Army. And you can tell an elite division in the German Army because they were given cuff titles to wear on their right sleeves of their uniforms. Großdeutschland means Greater Germany. To have been a member of this unit, you would have had to have been born in one of the original 13 provinces of Germany. How the German Army basically organized their divisions was generally geographically. So they would raise men from a particular geographical region, with the exception of the Großdeutschland Division, which took in men from the entire country. The Großdeutschland Division fought the entire war, with the exception of a small time in France in 1940 on the Eastern Front against the Russians. That was why we chose to pick this particular division to portray. We didn't want to pick a division that historically fought against Americans, even though we do that at these reenactments all the time. To give you a little bit of an idea of what warfare was like on the Eastern Front, it was basically horrendous. The Großdeutschland Division, between May of 1942 and in January of 1943, was an 18,000 man division. They took 100% casualties in that 6-month period. That means 100% of the men were either wounded, killed, or missing in action. Obviously, it wasn't the same group of 18,000 men because they were rotating men in and out. War on the Eastern Front was horrendous. The division was used as a firefighting division. Every time the Russians were breaking through in the sector, this division was moved into that area to try to hold back the Russian horde. A little bit about our weaponry and our uniforms here. First of all, our ranks. I am a Feldwebel. Feldwebel means field mother in German. I'm equivalent to a sergeant in the American Army. My comrade here, Klaus Schultz, is a Gefreiter. He's equivalent to a corporal. And then we have Grenadier Edward Lohr, who's basically a private. Our uniforms are an early war model uniform. This is what the German Army was wearing when they marched into Poland in 1939. As the war went on, they had to simplify their uniforms, and to do that, to keep up with production, they did things like getting rid of the pleated pockets, stopped dyeing the pants gray. They got rid of these bottle green collars. They even started simplifying the boots. Instead of the jack boots, they started going to a lower, low boot to save on leather. Ed, show them the bottom of your boots there. They were used heel irons and hobnails on their boots, again to save on the shoe leather, because Germany, those of you who do not realize it, is about the size of Wisconsin. So that they didn't have a lot of natural resources, so they had to stretch with what they had. Okay, with respect to the equipment, being a Feldwebel, I would be carrying an MP40 submachine gun. This is a 9mm submachine gun. It has a 35-round clip. You pull the trigger in about 8 seconds, we'll fire all 35 rounds. Klaus here is carrying the standard infantry rifle, what is called a K98 rifle. When you hear designations like MP40 or K98, the number is the year the weapon was designed. This weapon was designed in 1898. Mine was designed in 1940. How the German Army fought the war was significantly different than how the Americans did. They had the tactic of attack, attack, attack. They were always on the attack, even when they were on the defensive. And that was realized in their weaponry. At the end of World War I, they did an analysis of what happened on the battlefield, and they realized that a target was only visible for about 2.5 seconds. So to be effective, they had to design very high rates of fire weapons. So the first weapon that they designed was the MG-34 machine gun. The MG-34 machine gun fired 8mm rounds, the same ammunition that the rifle would utilize. It had a rate of fire of between 12 and 1,400 rounds per minute. The rounds would be put on linked belts of 50 rounds, and they would be carried in ammunition drum cans. They would carry 250 rounds of ammunition. The belts could be linked together to create longer chains. A weapon like this could not actually be fired at that rate of fire, 12 or 1,400 rounds per minute, because the barrel would literally turn red hot. And when that would happen, the bullet's accuracy is lost and the bullets just start spraying all over. So they would shoot the gun in short bursts, between 5 and 8 round bursts. And then what they would do is carry spare barrels, okay, and change out the barrels to let them cool down. It would take about 3 seconds to change the barrel on that gun, okay? The German army provided one machine gun in every squad of 10 men. Okay, the machine gun was the main source of firepower, and the riflemen with the 5-round bolt-action rifles supported the machine gun. Now, conversely, what happened with the Americans in World War I was a little bit different situation. They were in a situation where they had to move forward and get into the trench lines. And when they did that, they were starting to realize that they did not have enough firepower. So towards the end of World War I, they started developing semi-automatic rifles. And the first one they developed right near the end of the war was the Browning automatic rifle in 1918. That developed into a handheld weapon that was called an M1 Garand, and I'm sure the paratrooper showed you one of those. So their theory was to put the firepower in the individual soldier's hand, and the machine gun supported a soldier. In the American Army, the machine gun was considered a company weapon. Ours was a squad weapon, theirs was a company weapon. So maybe every 75 men would have a machine gun, where every 10 men in the German army had a machine gun. After this weapon was designed, they came out with another weapon that was called the MG-42. It had a rate of fire between 16 and 1,800 rounds per minute. The American soldiers called that Hitler's zipper, because when it fired, it just made a ripping sound. You couldn't distinguish between the individual bullets being fired. It was a very intimidating weapon to come up against. Some of the other equipment, was a gas mask canister. Even though poison gas was not used during World War II, the German soldier was required to carry his gas mask because Hitler was a casualty of a gas attack during World War I. Most of the soldiers would get rid of the gas masks and put their clean socks or their cigarettes in the case, but if they got caught doing that, they were severely punished. So it wasn't something that they would do. The German army was as brutal on its own men as it was on the enemy. You can turn back around. What he is also wearing, because he's a machine gunner, his sidearm is a pistol, much like mine. The other distinctive feature of the German soldier's uniform was the Stahlhelm, which means steel helm, steel hat in German, and the shape of the helmet. You can see that now the modern day American Army has adopted this, this shape. The weapon, how the weapon would be used, you guys want to get into position? Basically, they would have, again, a 10-man squad, so you would have 6 riflemen, 3 on each side. They would have the machine gun commander, which is my role, and they would have another ammunition carrier behind these 3 guys. I would be giving them direction as to what the target was, what direction they would be shooting at, what the distance was to the target, and how many rounds to fire on the target. It would be my responsibility to try to adjust their fire using my binoculars if they were firing high or low in correcting their fire. That weapon could also be shot either semi-automatically, single shots, or in an automatic, firing. They could shoot through that 50-round linked ammo in probably about 10 seconds on that gun. With that, I'll leave it to you folks if you got any questions. All right. I thought of one thing I forgot to mention is their hand grenades. Okay. For those of you who are a collector of American memorabilia, this looks like the old-time potato masher, which is what the GIs called it. The reason it's shaped like this is for a specific reason. It is much easier to throw this hand grenade than it is the American pineapple hand grenade, because this stick on it gives you leverage. You can be laying down on the ground, and it really allows you to get much more distance than you can trying to throw the American pineapple type hand grenade. This type of weapon, again, is an offensive weapon, whereas the pineapple hand grenade is a defensive weapon. This is a concussion grenade. Its purpose was to throw it at an enemy position. It blows up and stuns them so that you can race forward and take the position. The American hand grenade is defensive in nature. As you throw that hand grenade, it blows up and it's shooting shrapnel in every direction. It's not something that you get just as much chance of hitting yourself with that weapon as the enemy. So it was just used in a situation, a bunch of guys are running at it, you just throw it and hope it hits something. So with that, of course, if there's any other questions, we'll let our other comrades take over from here.
Any questions?
Very good.
Mitch, if you were to recommend any books about
Yes.
German soldier,
Probably the best book about the German soldier that I've read, and it's interesting enough, it's actually about a guy who was in the Grossdeutschland division. It's called The Forgotten Soldier by a guy named Guy Sager, S-A-J-E-R. He actually had a French mother and a German father, and he was conscripted into the German army in 1940 and was sent to Russia in 1942 and fought right to the end of the war with the Grossdeutschland division. And I'd say that's probably the best book that I've read on a German soldier.
thank you.
Yep.